On today's episode, we break down the scouting report for Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson and explain why he's still a top 50 pick.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast. Cover your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with the LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every Dayers. Guys, we are talking about Ty Simpson. We're going to break down his scouting report, go over his strengths and what makes him a good quarterback, some of the concerns we have projecting to the NFL, and then we're going to close this thing out with explaining the grade and giving you our NFL comps. But before that, today's episode is sponsored by Prospects. Download the Prospects app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Keith, Ty Simpson, quarterback for Alabama. When you broke down the tape, when you watched the tape, studied it, and took down your notes, what's his best trait? What's his superpower heading into the NFL?
Yeah, so explaining superpower, DP, I want to start with Ty Simpson, the player, right? Like the quarterback, the background of who he is, right? This is a young man that's sat at Alabama, right? I believe he might have done 1 year crossover with Bryce Young, right? I think one year,
so.
And then a couple years with Jalen Milroe. So in the land of the transfer portal era, this is a young man that decided to stay at Alabama, which showed me he's committed to the process, right? And then wait his turn, right? And in this turn, right, they had a hot start to, outside of the Florida State game. Florida State game was not pretty for Alabama, but outside of that, had a hot start, right? To I believe he was at something like 20 plus touchdowns, I think 21 touchdowns and no interceptions over a stretch of games, right? And so that leads me to talking about the decision making, DP, and leads me to why I think this young man is cool, calm, and collected, right? Like he had the opportunity to observe, right? Observe Jalen Milroe, observe Bryce Young, right? And then when he stepped in, it was high level decision making for him. And we thought that he made good decisions with the football, right? Earlier in the season, probably early all the way up into the last quarter of the season.
Oklahoma.
Right? Yeah, to Oklahoma. And then things started to happen, and we'll kind of point to why we believe those things happen. But in my opinion, DP, you're talking about being a middle of the field thrower. And for young quarterbacks or quarterbacks without experience, they usually avoid the middle of the field, right? That's usually the difficult part, especially with the college game now and how so many quick screens and bubble screens are built in, right? The RPO things are built into where they get so much high percentage throws working outside of the hashes, outside of the numbers, right? So they can afford to go through the entire game and not have to work the middle of the field. So, but watching Ty, and I think it's something we talked about during the season, was those levels concepts, right? I think about Ben Johnson and how he loves to kind of make the safeties and the linebackers make decisions, right? Do I stay back, or do I come up and cover the underneath wide receiver? Ty Simpson has showed the ability to master that part of it, and I think that's his superpower is his IQ and understanding the middle of the field defenses.
No, 100%, especially for a first year starter, first time starter. And I think I put that in my report over at Bleacher Report. Like, he played with much higher IQ and even like pocket awareness. I always go back to, just from me, I agree with everything you said, and I'll add on, like, some things I think are some of his best traits is he played more polished, like, especially in that stretch of like that 9-game stretch from week 1 to right before that Oklahoma game, which he still threw for over 300 yards against Oklahoma. But I think he had like he was strip sacked once or twice, and then he had an interception. But before that first meet with Oklahoma, he had thrown, I think, 1 interception all season for like 9 games. You know what I mean? And just like he was playing at a high level. And those flashes, it wasn't even a flash. That was like 8 to 9 games of really football play.
Yeah, I just looked at it, DP 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it was in the first 9 games, he only had 1 interception, right? So that's what we're talking about. First 9 games, and it wasn't like he was not throwing the football at all, right? You're talking about pass
Yep.
attempts through some games against Georgia, right? He had 38 pass attempts, Vanderbilt 31, Missouri 31, Tennessee 29, South Carolina 43, Florida State was 43, right? So
Yep.
it wasn't like he was walking in there and only throwing the ball 15 to 20 times,
Right.
and Bama had this really good run game to where it was just a couple play actions and dumping the football. It was probably the exact opposite of that.
He was not a game manager, guys. Like that passing offense, that offense was really on his shoulders once he got going. But I love the polish that I saw from him, how rhythmic his dropbacks were. And he was like, especially in that stretch of 9 games, his dropbacks were in sync with his receivers' routes. So when that back foot hits, he's ready to throw. He climbs the pocket vertically, but he's still as athletic to spin out and get out of trouble and different things like that. Edge pressure has never really was not a thing that hampered him or hindered him, right? Like this, if you got pressure with your edge rushers, but your interior defensive line doesn't collapse that pocket, he's gonna climb up and he's gonna rip those throws in the middle of the field. And then the accuracy, Keith, like he almost like long handoffs. When he's on, he's delivering on time, on target, and precise passes. How many times we see that dagger concept where you got the deep out route from usually Jerm Bernard, you get the top taken off by Ryan Williams or that freshman number 17. He takes the safety, you get the deep in cut, and he just puts it right on the money. And it's easy for Jerm Bernard to go from receiver to runner. It's instantaneous. I don't have to wait for the ball. I don't got to stop my momentum. I catch it in stride and I go. This is a guy that NFL teams, they're going to look at that 9 games and say, I can absolutely work with this. Like the stuff that happened after that, it's just coaching and experience.
Yeah, I think they would be missing out if they gloss over that period, right? Like if you gloss over that period and only focus on the back end. But I wanted to hit on 2 points that you the pocket presence, right? Like that's huge, right? We talk about being able to like that we see the drill all the time. They got 2 hands on the football, they step up, right? And then you step up to the left or to the right. And that's putting yourself in position, DP, to where you're stepping up, ready to throw the football, or you're stepping up and you can escape the pocket forward, right? We always talk about quarterbacks potentially, and it's only the Patrick Mahomes. Now you can put Caleb Williams in that conversation, right? The guys that can run backwards for 20 yards, right? And make something out of it. That's not the case for a lot of other quarterbacks, right?
No.
And so it doesn't turn out well. But that's why he puts himself in position to be positive, right? Because of how he steps up in the pocket and then can find lanes to get upfield and, like I said, either tuck the ball and run, or he can step up and be able to deliver a good football.
And the offensive linemen are going to love him for that, Keith, because if you keep dropping back and out leveraging us, and like you got to hear the commentators and fans and everybody will say, well, the offensive line is giving up sacks. No, you keep drifting backwards. If you step up, that helps us out.
Yeah, and that's something that isn't discussed because everybody talks about, and this is for movement type plays, right? So you're talking about bootlegs, you're talking about rollout, things like that, right? It's like, okay, move the launch point for the quarterback, right? But sometimes as the offensive lineman, especially on traditional dropbacks, I want to know where you at, right? Because if I get beat, I know that even if I get beat, I'm going to take away this, and I know that you're not going to be right there, right? But if I set hard inside, and then I'm like, all right, cool. As long as you run around me, well, if you run out the pocket, then you run right into the defender, right? And then I'm like, okay, I didn't think you were going to be right there. Like we've seen it on TV where the lineman turn around, and like, I wasn't expecting you to be there, right?
What are you doing back here? Like,
yeah. Why are you in that place, right? Why are you right there? So, just to wrap this segment up, DP, I think there are a lot of positives. We talked about pocket presence. We talked about accuracy. We talked about mental fortitude. We're talking about pre-snap, being able to identify some things, throw across the middle of the field. And then also the last thing, the mobility, right? Not just pocket presence, but the mobility. If he gets outside, I think he's a guy you're going to have to account for in the RPO action because he can pick up, I like to call it, not a lot of impactful yards, right? Yards that can make a difference for a defense, right? Meaning the 3rd and 9s, if you don't have that if that backside defensive end is collapsing, you could potentially be in trouble, right? Like you have to account for him just in those type of situations when you're talking about the 5 yards to potentially 15-ish yardage as far as him being able to make
some good runs on tape. He's got some pretty good runs on tape. Like even to the point where he breaks the second level and he's reading, cutting, off of the blocks upfield. And you don't, I mean, like, of course you expect to see a Lamar Jackson do that, or even a Caleb, like those running quarterbacks, the guys who are true dual threats, but you don't see quarterbacks who are who are like above average athletes and good athletes who win more from the pocket. That ability to read blocks and adjust on the fly, that's a really good trait to have as a running quarterback.
Yep, I agree with DP. Let's do this, man. You know how we do. We lay out the entire scouting report, right? So we went through the strengths, right? Next segment, we're going to talk about the concerns, right? Why did things go bad for Ty Simpson and Alabama Crimson Tide those last 3-4 games of the season? And what do we believe he needs to improve? So let's talk about that coming up next.
It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and you'll get $200 back in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Sure, you want someone who's in network, nearby, and has availability. But you also want a doctor who listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly. That kind of doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love without all the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering over 200 specialties, from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. Breaking down the concerns for Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. That's what we're getting into next. Guys, thanks for being an everydayer with us. And if you want the show ad-free, check out the Everydayer Club. Just go to LockedOnNFLDraft.supercast.com to subscribe and become a member. The concerns when it pertains to Ty Simpson, quarterback out of Alabama, with 6'2", so we have to mention this early, guys, for those who don't know, 6'2", 208, 210-pound quarterback from the SEC. I think one of the big things, Keith, I think what went down, I think after that 9 games, I go back, Brent Venables, one of the best masterminds defensively in college football. I honestly think Brent Venables could be an outstanding coach and defensive coordinator in the NFL. I think he'll give NFL offensive play callers and quarterbacks all types of hell with how he can scheme up pressure and different things like that. When it pertains to that game and what I started to see down the stretch, teams start attacking the interior of that offensive line. Simulated pressure looks, sending pressure through the A-gaps, getting in the face of Ty Simpson. The quick interior pressure is where he struggles. Because, again, like we talked about, the pocket mobility, pocket presence for him. If it's just your edge rushers, right? Not saying, if you got Vaughn Miller and Myles Garrett, that's a problem. But if those guys are getting upfield, but your interior offensive line is fine, he's going to step up, reset his feet, climb the pocket, and deliver and get the ball out. When that interior pressure starts to get to him, that's when he starts to have some of the issues. You start speeding him up. He starts to drift back. He starts backpedaling in the pocket and things. I wanted to see that clock for him just go off quicker once teams started doing that to them, to that offensive line. The offensive line, and for those who don't know, anytime you can't run the ball, that's a clear indicator that your offensive line is not good. They're not playing good football. And Bama couldn't run the ball all season, which lets you know the offensive line didn't play well. So, when that started to happen, I wanted to see him utilize that athleticism. I think I go back to CJ Stroud's profile. Remember going into that Georgia game, everybody's like, man, CJ Stroud's people thought he was immobile. He wasn't a good athlete. Most people didn't know he played basketball growing up. Like he didn't use his legs. It's almost like he refused. Then he gets into that playoff game against Georgia and he's crossing up freaking Jalen Carter and throwing touchdowns. And people are like, where was this the entire season at Ohio State, CJ? Like, why did you refuse to use your legs? When teams started getting pressure in the face of Ty Simpson, I felt like I was watching Stroud again. Like that you're not triggering to use your athleticism when you need to. Get out the pocket. Don't just drift back. Roll out of there. Get free. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, the tackles got beat sometimes, but when your tackles are solid and they did their job, but it's just the interior that's getting beat now, you got to get out of there. Him not using his athleticism hurt him in those moments, and I need to see him do that better in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think that comes with calculated, right? Like that's the instinctual part of it, and going to quarterbacks that are not known for being true athletes, right? But the Tony Romos, and people about to go crazy when I put them in the same category, but talking about the mobility part, people. Matthew Stafford, right? And Matthew isn't no athletic guy, but he understands to escape the pocket, find somebody down the field, right? Like those caliber of quarterbacks. And I think for Ty, that's probably the part, and I'm gonna get into this concern, the limited starts, right? Is that you have to figure out, like, from going from off season, it's not an off season to another from one season off season to another season, right? You're playing a totally different game when you go to the NFL, right?
Yep.
So you don't go in there essentially with the answers to the test. This game is a lot faster. The defensive situations are a lot more complex, and who knows what franchise you go to, right? You may go to a dysfunctional franchise. But I think him trying to find that answer, I agree with you, is going to be very big for his game. I want to ask you, DP, because we made so much of a point on the turnovers and lack of turnovers the first 9 games, right? Where do you identify the turnovers for the back quarter of the season? Like what do the turnovers derive from you?
The pressure, and just kind of the decision making.
I was about to ask, like, the pressure, did it speed up his process to make bad decisions? Like, was it that?
Yeah, I think that played a big part of it. Just like, he was playing so well on time for the most part of the season that because like after that, I think the most pressure he faced for majority of that 9-game stretch might have been that Florida State game. Like that Florida State defensive line was able to get after him. They played really well in the front on the front lines, but after that, the offensive line did settle in pass protection. He played well. Play calling was good. He was playing in rhythm on time. And then he's one of those quarterbacks where it was kind of like that old phrase, get them off their spot. Like he's that type of quarterback. Like I got to get you off your spot. Because if I leave you on your spot, you're going to cook. Like you're going to be able to get into rhythm, and we don't want to have to try and get you out of rhythm. So I think just once the pressure started getting there, and it's like not even just getting there, but like, okay, now he's getting hit a lot. I think with the Auburn game, he got blasted so many times against Auburn. Oklahoma hit him a lot. And it, like I said, it's not just pressure getting to him. The hits started accumulating, Keith. And I felt like he was trying to get the ball out quicker. Then you compound that with the fact that wide receivers weren't getting open, against man-to-man coverage. And when you start really looking at the film, you're like, man, how much of it? But Ryan Williams can still get open. He's a really good athlete. The route running, upside stuff, all that stuff is there. He just didn't catch the ball when he did get the ball. But everybody else, it felt like the scheme had to get them to freedom. Like, get them into space, get them to that void, get them to open grass. They couldn't just win consistently by themselves. And that's a problem when teams say, you know what? We have the athletes to go one-on-one. We can go man-to-man, and we can send pressure. And if I send zero pressure and you don't got a guy that can make me pay for that, your quarterback is dead to rights. And you start to see that later on in the season. After Brent Venables, I felt like every team they faced after that tried to replicate that recipe and just get after him, hit him early, and make him feel those hits to where now his clock, he doesn't have it's like the daylight saving time where you lose an hour, you wake up like, man, what is going on? For him, that's what it was like. It was like your clock is wrong and you waking up at the wrong times. You're late for work, Ty. Like you got to get up a little earlier. This isn't working. And I think that's what happened with the pressure, man. I think the pressure got to him and threw him off. And I think the other thing, Keith, I want to see him improve on, and it's just reps. It's anticipation. I want to see him anticipate some throwing lanes a little bit more consistently, like get the ball out early.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about when we were talking about Fernando on yesterday, and you brought up Brock Purdy, how Purdy throws the ball well before the guy breaks. And it was just like, Purdy said, listen, I mean, he talked about, I can't see, so I'm getting the ball out there. Like, you know what I mean? I can't always see sometimes. I'm letting it rip. So he throws it out to that void. Trust that George Kittle on that end breaker. He knows the timing of that route, right? Like, and things of that nature. I want to see, it doesn't have to be to that extent, but I want to see Ty just get better anticipating these throwing lanes. Sometimes he holds on to the ball and it's almost waiting for guys to clear to go ahead. All right, now I'm going to throw it. You know what I mean? And I want to see him get better, especially against man-to-man coverage and things like that. Anticipate these throwing lanes. Throw your guy away from the coverage and allow them to make some plays.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And lastly, DP, I'm going to just say and I know people love, this is a huge talking point, right? But the arm talent, arm strength, physical tools thing, right? Yep. I would probably put him in a good bucket, not a great bucket, right? Like and we talked about it, right? That's what's going to separate the Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence as NFL draft prospects versus, the Jared Goffs, Mendoza's, just other guys that have come out in the draft. So I think it's good, not great. And I wonder how other people are going to respond to him. On this show, I know you've, kind of leaned this way also, is that, a lot of this is from the neck up, right? As far as how grading quarterbacks and what they do in their process and stuff. So I'm interested to see him, because wasn't able to see him at the Senior Bowl. Interested to see him at the combine, right? Like I want to see his body profile. What does he look like? How does the ball come off his arm? Things like that, and watch him in sequence to the other quarterback. So I'm interested to see him. I think it's going to be a really big draft process for Ty Simpson. Let's do this, DP. My favorite part of the show. We're talking grades and we're talking NFL comps. We're talking about that coming up next.
If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results. Using Indeed sponsored jobs, listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. New year, new systems. And this is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communication is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing ever gets missed. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year when no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo. Don't miss calls, no miss customers. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. And thank you for always making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you explaining the grades. And we're going to give out the NFL comps for Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Keith, when you went through the tape, you did your profile, you did everything. What grade did you land on? He started well, tapered off, had a good playoff game against Oklahoma. Wasn't so great, got knocked out with the bruised rib, broken rib, whatever it may have been against Indiana. What grade did you land on for Ty Simpson for the season?
Yeah, I'm DP right now, and I'm going to obviously as we hit the combine, we'll probably do a couple more of these draft profile shows just to kind of update a couple things.
Yep.
I came in at a very high second, right? A half a point from a first, just because what he did the first 9-10 games of the season, I really enjoyed. Now, and we talked about it, right? And that's why I enjoyed doing these shows, is because we talk about both sides of the coin, right? So the reason why he's so high is because of the things we talked about, the strengths, the concerns are things that unfortunately I haven't seen him do it yet, right? And it's also a lack of reps, right? Just because he's only a 1-year start. I think he started 15 games throughout his career. So I went 84.5. 85 is a first round, right? Like that starts the first round bucket. So I went 84.5. But I think seeing things like the NFL Combine, things like that, there's potential for him to move up in my grade. So I'm gonna let you go. I want to see who's your NFL comp first. So I'm gonna let you go. You tried to get me and get me caught up, but I'm gonna toss it right back to you. You're not gonna give me this time. So I'm gonna let you go with your grade and your comp first.
I'm right there with you. I have a high second round grade for him as well. For us, 8 is a late first. I got him at a 7.9. So he's like 1 point away from being a back in the first round type of quarterback. And I'm with you. You know what I mean? That 8 to 9 game stretch, there were more than like if anybody that watched his film, you can't go through those 8 to 9 games and be like, man, this ain't some really good stuff. Like you can't tell me that. Like I don't. And if you do, I'm gonna call you a liar. Like it just is what it is. Like that is some really good stuff that he put on film. The pocket presence, climbing the pocket, accuracy, and even then, like he had like I can't remember what game it was. He had a throw that was the Zach Wilson Pro Day throw. He was rolling to his left and ripped it back on like a deep shot to the right side of the field in stride, hit the receiver right in the bucket. And I was just like, oh, that's that Zach Wilson throw, the one that he never made in the game that we all loved. Like he just made it in the game. So I was like, shout out to Ty Simpson. The play was because I remember tweeting it out after that game. LSU, he got a quick, I think it was an edge pressure. He ripped through, reset his feet, and threw a dime to I think Jerome Bernard on like a crossing route, whizzed it right past the ear hole of an underneath defender. I'm like, this dude looks like a pro quarterback through and through. The end of the season was the end of the season, and I get it. But that 8-9 games, oh no, that right there is really good stuff. So I got him. I think he absolutely, and I still think he might end up being a late first round pick. Keith, my confidence is Tony Romo.
So okay, that's funny. Real quick, let me address that part. The 8-9 game part and him being, I still think he will go in the first round. As of now, and so. To our listeners, right? I'm like, okay, how did you give him a second round grade, but you think he'll go in the first round? They're like each draft
QB tax.
Yeah, QB tax, but also there aren't 32 first round grades. And DP, you're pretty much finished your first round grades. I'm almost done with mine. I don't have 32 first round grades.
I don't either.
The past couple years, I probably landed only on like 15, right? So there's not a lot of first round grades to be given out. So that's how you end up still being a second round prospect and going in the first round. So I just wanted to kind of explain that to our listeners, right? That they was just kind of confused potentially. So we believe that this guy's second round grade as a draft prospect, but when we're talking about projecting him in taking the best prospects, he should still fall somewhere in, the top 20, top 25, something like that. But you said your NFL comp is Tony Romo. I like that one. I like that one a lot. And I was trying to find Tony Romo was somebody that came to mind, and I definitely like that one. And I thought of, if we're talking, I hate to say recency bias, right? But kind of in this era, I kind of thought of Sam Darnold a little bit. And because Sam has that kind of like sneaky mobility factor to him. And I think about situations, right? That when Sam was in bad situations, he was making bad decisions and turning the football over at a high clip, right? You're talking about no offensive line, play call, the whole situation, right? He got a bad Sam Darnold. But you put him in good situations, the Minnesota Vikings, the Seattle Seahawks, good offensive line, good play structure, good receivers, you get good hot play, right? So I'm going to go this. I'm going to split the difference. I think career arc and kind of evolvement is Sam Darnold. I think skill set, I agree with you on a Tony Romo factor.
Yeah, and I think that's why, and I want to kind of further this conversation a little bit more as we go talking through this conversation. You look at the teams, right, and you think about the Jets, and it's multiple teams that need quarterbacks right now, multiple teams, and I think the one team, and they just hired their head coach, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. Like if he falls out of round one, I think the Cardinals have the 34th pick in the draft. The Jets, I think, have the 33rd pick, which is right, top of the second, opening up the second round. Mike LaFleur, coming out that kind of that Sean McVay, Shanahan, that West Coast offense, him going to Arizona to be the head coach and the guy that's going to set that scheme up. I think that if there's any landing spot to look out for Ty, if he does fall out of round one, it's Arizona. The place I think he more than likely ends up, unless they decide to spend some money on defense. If they decide to spend some money on defense, he definitely lands there. It's the Los Angeles Rams with Sean McVay. Like, and you talking about that ability to, because clearly one thing that I think we all could take away from Ty Simpson, that time sitting behind the quarterbacks, he sat behind multiple quarterbacks, and he was in two different offenses. You know what I mean? He was there when Nick Saban was there, and he was there when Kalen DeBoer was there. Yep. Different offenses, you know what I mean? Different play calls, different styles and schemes. He's clearly a student of the game to where he was ready to go, but it was time for him to start, right? Got that first game out the way, got the jitters out. After that, he started cooking. So I think that the Rams understanding we need an answer for whenever Matthew Stafford does call it quits. We need to have that guy on the roster. You don't want to be sitting there like the Steelers who haven't found their quarterback since Big Ben. Like, you look at other people's failures and say, I'm not making that same mistake. I will draft him. You got 2 first-round picks. I think the 2 landing spots, crazy enough, are in the NFC West, and it's the Rams and the Cardinals that I'll be looking at to potentially make the move and select him come April.
Well, DP, I'm going to put you back on the hot seat, right? We're not going to talk about the Arizona Cardinals at 34. Would you take them at 3 if you was the Arizona Cardinals? Because they sit at pick 3.
Man, that's tough. I would no. I love Ty, but probably not. I think I'd rather be able to. I would rather be able, because I think for them, every time I do a mock draft myself, I'm like, man, what do I give y'all? And I'm like, well, offensive lineman, whether it's Spencer Fonno or Francis Mauigoa, we got to get better on the offensive line. So I'd rather make sure I got the offensive line in place for him. I think James Conner returns, Trey Benson returns, be able to run the football. And then maybe you pull the Atlanta Falcons and you say, you know what? Let me trade into the back end of the first round. Maybe the Patriots end up having either 31-32, but we'll find out at the end of Sunday. And maybe you call it the Patriots, hey, let me trade back. I don't got to give you a first for that. And you take him so you can get that 5th year option. I think that's probably the best course of action if I'm the Cardinals. I don't want to take him too early. I'd rather be able to get the best player available and make sure that we make his life a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I agree. And DP, I'll say this, man. The LaFleur, Shula, Shanahan, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm trying to keep up with the names. A lot of Mike's.
It's a lot of trees, man. It's a lot of trees.
It's a lot to keep up with. So, but now, DP, I think that was a really good episode, and that is Ty Simpson, right? And listen, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find me on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. On tomorrow's show, we're getting into another quarterback, talking about Garrett Nussmeier and why he's our QB3 of the 2026 NFL draft season until we see what happens at the Combine. So come join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.